It was a story of old times, when small villages lay in the heart of England, and life danced to the tune of simplicity and contentment. Among them lived a shepherd, surrounded by the fragrance of green fields and golden soil, whom the villagers lovingly called Sam. Sam's real name was Samuel, but due to his simplicity and good character, he was known as Sam throughout the community. His world was small, yet it was full of love and happiness. He had only 2 children, a 7-year-old daughter named Rose and a 5-year-old son named Tom, and a young wife named Emma. Emma was a woman who carried an entire universe in her silence. There was an ocean of patience in her eyes, and a kind of magic in her hands that could make ordinary food taste delicious and turn a small house into a paradise. Poverty was their fate. They often struggled to have 2 meals a day, yet there was such peace in their home that even many wealthy houses could not match. They were truly happy in their little world. They supported one another, shared each other's sorrows, and kept the will of God in their hearts. Sam's daily routine began at dawn. When a few stars still glittered in the sky and a soft red glow touched the eastern horizon, he would wake up, offer his morning prayers, and pray to God for his family's well-being. Then, taking up his stick, he would lead the animals of Mr. James, the landlord of the village, out to graze. Mr. James, unlike many landlords, was a merciful and kind man, well known for helping the poor and treating everyone with respect. He never kept his wealth for himself but spent it for the welfare of the village and the good of others. Helping the needy, checking on the sick, and treating rich and poor alike was his way of serving the community. Many villagers worked for him, and he trusted each one with his tasks. He looked after them with genuine care. His kindness inspired loyalty, and the people worked for him as if they were working for their own homes. Every week, he would gather them together, ask about their needs, and make sure justice was done for all. These qualities had brought happiness to the small village. The people were poor, but their hearts were peaceful. Sam, too, was poor, yet he was among those content souls who performed their duties with responsibility. There was always a smile on his face, a reflection of his inner peace and complete trust in God. He was happy with his wife and children in their modest home, and content with life. One bright morning, with the sun shining and the birds singing, Sam set out for the meadow with his animals. The meadow stretched wide with fresh green grass, and a small river ran through it. In summer, the river often dried up, leaving behind only shallow water and thick mud. On this day, the water was low, and mud covered most of the riverbed. While the animals grazed, Sam sat under a large oak tree, listening to the cheerful chirping of the birds. The peaceful scene made the troubles of the world seem far away. When the sun began to lower and the sky turned a warm shade of orange, Sam started guiding the animals home. But fate had something else planned, a trial that would change his day entirely. Among his herd was a large buffalo, heavy and slow, with little awareness of his surroundings. The buffalo wandered into a muddy patch of the river and became stuck. He tried to pull himself out, but the more he struggled, the deeper he sank. Soon, half his body was trapped, and each movement only made it worse. At first, Sam thought it was nothing serious and that the buffalo would free himself. But when the animal's legs began to sink deeper, Sam's heart raced. The buffalo strained with all his strength, pushing and twisting, but it was no use. Exhaustion showed in his eyes. Seeing this, sweat beaded on Sam's forehead. He rushed forward, grabbed the rope tied to the buffalo, and pulled with all his might. His breath came hard, his arms ached, but the buffalo did not budge. The grip of the mud was like iron, dragging the heavy beast down further. Sam tried again and again, his hands burning and his muscles screaming in pain, but still he could not free the animal. Time was passing quickly, and evening shadows were spreading across the land. From the nearby woods came sounds that seemed sharper and more insistent than usual, making the atmosphere feel even more unsettling. Sam realized that it was impossible to free the buffalo from the mud on his own. He thought about how night was approaching fast and how the danger from wild animals would grow. In this area, wolves and even wildcats were sometimes seen after dark. Reluctantly, he gathered the rest of the animals and left the helpless buffalo in the mud, heading home with a heavy heart. He hated leaving the buffalo in that state, but there was no other choice. All the way back, his thoughts kept circling around what might happen to the poor creature. When he reached home, he tied up the animals and immediately ran to the house of Mr. James, the landlord. By then, the night was dark, and the full moon bathed the village in silver light. Mr. James was sitting in the courtyard, talking with someone. The worry on Sam's face was so clear that the landlord instantly knew something serious had happened. "What's the matter, Sam? Why do you look so troubled?" he asked. Sam told him everything, from the moment the buffalo became stuck in the mud to all his failed attempts to pull it free. His voice trembled with worry and helplessness, sounding almost like a man on the verge of tears. Mr. James listened carefully, without anger. "It's all right, Sam," he reassured him. "Don't worry. The night is far advanced now. In the morning, we'll take a few strong men from the village and pull it out. There's nothing to panic about." But then Mr. James paused, thinking aloud. "There is one concern. At night, wild animals may harm the buffalo. Wolves and wildcats sometimes wander into that area in search of water. Here's what we'll do: go home, eat something, tell your family, and then go back to keep watch over it. If you want, I'll send 2 men with you so you're not alone. The woods can be dangerous after dark." Sam shook his head firmly. He wasn't willing to trouble others for his responsibility. "No, sir," he said with quiet confidence. "There's nothing to fear. God is my protector. I'll go alone and guard the buffalo. In the morning, you can send the men, and together we'll pull it out. My Lord has always carried me through difficulty, and he will again." The landlord admired Sam's courage and loyalty. Trusting him completely, he agreed without further argument. Sam then hurried back to his home. The narrow lanes of the village lay under the hush of night, broken only by the sighing wind and the distant barking of dogs. The moonlight touched the dusty paths, and every closed door seemed to guard its own secrets. But Sam's heart was heavy, knowing Emma would be troubled by his decision. He wore a mask of calm strength on his face. He couldn't let her see his own concern, or it would only make her more uneasy. As soon as Sam knocked, Emma opened the door. Her eyes showed no trace of sleep, only anxiety. "You're very late tonight," she said softly, her voice tinged with worry. "I was waiting for you." My heart felt so uneasy, even the children couldn't sleep. Sam sat on their worn wooden chair and told her everything: the buffalo stuck in the mud, the landlord's instructions, and his decision to guard it through the night. He also mentioned how Mr. James had offered to send 2 men with him, but he had refused. Emma's face grew pale. "You'll be out there all night? Alone?" Her voice shook, and shadows of fear moved across her eyes. She remembered the tales of wolves and wild creatures the elders of the village used to tell. "What if something happens to you? God forbid, what will become of our children?" she said, tears gathering. "And what if there are spirits out there?" she whispered, almost too afraid to speak the words. "No, don't go alone. Tell Mr. James to send someone with you. Please. I'm frightened something will happen." Sam, known in the village for his bravery, smiled at his wife's concern. Placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, he said warmly, "Oh, silly one. You're worrying for nothing. Nothing will happen. This is my duty, and I'll be fine. God is my guardian." He quickly changed the subject. "Now hurry, I'm starving. Bring me some food, it's already late, and I must leave again soon." The night is deep, and what if a wild animal reaches the buffalo? Emma knew her husband's stubborn nature. Once he made a decision, there was no turning him. Her heart cried out to stop him, but she also understood his sense of responsibility. In silence, she served him warm bread and rice. Sam ate quickly, thanking God with every bite for the blessing of food. Then, rising, he said, "All right, I'm going. Lock the doors well, and don't be afraid." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady her heart. "All right," she whispered, "but please take care of yourself." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she closed the door, then she prayed quietly for his safety. Sam picked up his sturdy stick and walked alone into the night toward the woods. The village lights faded behind him, and the mysterious darkness of the forest closed in. The silence was so deep he could hear his own footsteps. The rustle of leaves sounded like whispered stories in the wind. As he entered the forest, a strange tension filled the air. The shadows of the trees looked like silent figures watching him. In the distance, the sharp bark of a fox echoed, followed by the hoot of an owl. Every sound heightened his senses. Inside, he was fighting fear. It was a private battle. His courage and sense of duty drove him forward, while human instinct urged him to turn back. He gripped his stick tightly, thinking of Emma's worried face, his children's innocent eyes, and the trust Mr. James had placed in him. After about half an hour of walking, he reached the river. The night was still except for the quiet sounds of the forest. From a distance, he heard the slow, heavy breathing of the buffalo. Coming closer, he saw it still stuck in the same way, looking exhausted and lifeless. His first thought was to build a fire to keep wild animals away. He began collecting dry branches and twigs from the surrounding area. It was not an easy task in the darkness, but he worked with steady determination. After gathering enough dry twigs and grass, Sam took 2 smooth stones and struck them together until sparks flew. Soon, a small flame caught in the dry grass, and in moments, the fire spread, sending warm light flickering into the cold darkness. The flame seemed almost alive, dancing against the shadows and giving a fragile sense of safety. Still, the deep unease of the forest did not vanish completely. Sam sat close to the fire, steadying his heart in the long, lonely hours of the night. From time to time, he spoke softly to the buffalo as though the animal could understand. "Don't worry, lad. By morning, we'll have you out of here." His own voice was strangely comforting in the heavy silence. He had no idea how long he kept talking. The firelight washed over his face, sometimes revealing it, sometimes hiding it in shadow. Time crawled slowly forward. Keeping his stick close, Sam listened intently to every sound. Now and then a faint rustle or distant cry made him start, his heart pounding. Midnight had long passed when drowsiness finally began to pull at his eyes. The long day's work and the strain of the night had worn him down. His eyes stung with fatigue, and his head began to nod. But then, a sound, sudden and near, tore him out of his half-sleep. It was the deep, heavy growl of an animal, so close that every muscle in his body froze. In an instant, all sleep vanished. His blood felt like ice, his breath caught in his throat. And then, from the shadows, it appeared. A massive lion stepped out from between the trees. Its size seemed greater than life, its burning eyes glowing like twin embers. Sam's heart dropped into a pit of fear. It was the very terror Emma had warned him about, now standing in the flesh before him. He thought, with sudden clarity, that this might be the last moment of his life. The lion advanced slowly, each movement measured and terrifying. Sam's fingers tightened around his stick, the only weapon he had, and a pitiful one against such a beast. Images flashed through his mind, Emma's worried eyes, his children's faces, the trust Mr. James had placed in him. There was no escape now, the lion was too close. He sat rooted to the ground, barely daring to breathe. His tongue was dry, his limbs stiff as though nailed in place. Then something unexpected happened. The lion stopped at the edge of the firelight, lowering its head. Sam noticed that its front left paw wasn't resting fully on the ground. The animal was limping. Even through the haze of fear, surprise flickered in his mind. The lion edged closer to the fire, eyes locked on Sam. And then, in a sound that was neither a growl nor a roar, but almost a pained cry, the beast extended its injured paw toward him. It was a strange, silent plea. Sam could see now, a long, thick thorn was lodged deep in the paw, the flesh around it swollen and raw. His heart pounded harder. This was madness, to reach for a lion's paw, but the thought came unbidden: if he wanted to kill me, he could have done it already. The moment became a strange meeting of fates, the hunter in need, the man trapped between fear and compassion. Taking a deep breath, Sam slowly reached forward. The lion let out a sharp roar at the first touch, and Sam snatched his hand back. The animal's cry was full of pain, not rage. Again, the paw stretched toward him. Sam swallowed his fear, gripped the thorn between his fingers, and with one quick pull, yanked it free. The lion roared so loudly that the forest seemed to tremble. Sam's head swam, the sound was deafening. Fear crashed over him like a wave, and before he could think, darkness closed in. He collapsed by the fire, unconscious. The lion stood still, breathing heavily. Relief was already visible in its eyes. It flexed the paw, now free of the thorn, and the pain began to fade. The night grew quiet again. Stars shone coldly overhead. The lion glanced toward the trapped buffalo, still lying helpless in the mud. It rose, muscles rippling under its tawny coat, and with a powerful bound closed the distance. The buffalo stirred at the sudden presence, fear flashing in its eyes. With all his strength, the great lion pulled the buffalo free in an instant. He shook his massive body, sending clumps of mud flying across the riverbank. The buffalo, trembling but unharmed, stood on the shore, her wide eyes still filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. The lion remained beside her for a moment, then stepped toward Sam's, sniffing him cautiously as though checking if he was well. Once satisfied that the man was safe, the lion limped away slowly, disappearing into the dense heart of the forest without causing him harm. He had acted against his own predatory nature, returning a favor to a human. By then, much of the night had passed. The buffalo stayed quietly on the bank, while Sam lay unconscious nearby. The forest was steeped in stillness, broken only by the soft calls of early-waking birds. Gradually, the first streaks of dawn began to color the horizon. Dew sparkled on the grass, and the pale gold of morning light spread across the land, carrying a fresh, cool scent in the air. When the sun's first rays touched Sam's face, he stirred and slowly opened his eyes. At first, he could not remember where he was. Then, in a sudden rush, the memories of the night returned, the lion's roar, the fall into darkness. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Startled, he looked around, half certain he had already become the lion's prey. His eyes darted frantically until they fell on his buffalo, caked in mud yet standing firmly on the bank. Sam could hardly believe it. He leapt to his feet and ran to her. Touching her flank, feeling the solid warmth beneath his hand, he knew it was no dream. The buffalo was truly safe. Looking around for the lion, he saw no sign of it. But then his eyes caught the place where he had pulled thorns from the lion's paw. The earth there was churned with mud, and faint drops of fresh blood still marked the ground. In that moment, the truth dawned on him. His heart swelled with gratitude and respect for the great beast. It was clear that after he had fainted, the lion had dragged his buffalo from the mud, spared their lives, and slipped silently away. Sam had never imagined that a fierce predator could return kindness. The event left a deep mark on his heart, and his faith in the Almighty grew stronger than ever. He whispered a prayer of thanks, not only for his own life, but for the protection of his livestock and for the lesson the night had taught him. Tears of gratitude welled in his eyes as he stroked the buffalo's head before leading her back towards the village. By now, the sun shone brightly, and the chorus of birds filled the countryside with cheerful music. There was a calm beauty in the air, and Sam walked with a new sense of strength, thought, and hope. When he reached the village, he was greeted by the village squire, Mr. James, and several concerned neighbors. Mr. James had not slept all night, worrying for Sam and his buffalo. Seeing them safe, his surprise was evident. "Sam," he exclaimed, "how on earth did you manage to get her out of the mud? That's not the work of any ordinary man." Sam took a deep breath and told the entire story. His voice carried a mixture of awe and truth, and the light in his eyes spoke not of fear, but of having witnessed something extraordinary. The squire and the villagers listened in amazement. They thanked God for Sam's safety and marveled at the lion's unlikely act. Word of the incident spread quickly through the countryside. People admired Sam's courage and were astonished at the wild creature's unexpected mercy. It became a defining chapter in Sam's life, one that not only proved his bravery but also left him with a deep and lasting lesson. From that day on, his story was told far and wide, and his name was remembered with respect. Moral of the story: true courage is facing fear with faith and compassion. Kindness and responsibility can create unexpected rewards and leave a lasting impact.